Today's class is all about the cloud computing architectures, metering and billing service. Cloud computing architecture, metering and billing service is a complex one. It is not only about how much infrastructure you are utilizing for how long. Based on this, your billing and metering will be done. So apart from this, there are several other parameters are there. Basically, it first consider that what type of services you are using, whether it is a infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service or software as a service. And but whether it is out either of this any one of the service, but some generic parameters are there that we need to consider in case of cloud computing, metering and billing architectures. So these generic components are one is the data storage, the network bandwidth, operation, data retrieval fees, how your data is being retrieved from the mirror server, and the early deletion fees, because if you consider reserved instance with an upfront cost, and in that means suppose you have taken a service for 1 year, but in between them you want to break the service level agreement and you want to delete the entire instances and you want to migrate to other services. That case also you have to pay some penalty. And what is the most important thing, that is the HTTP SOAP GET or PUT request that you are making to your services. SOAP means Simple Object Access Protocol, and REST is another protocol. These are basically service-oriented architecture. These are under service-oriented architecture. So how many types of SOAP and REST request you are making, and that is also depends on whether you are making within your availability zone or out of your availability zone. So if it is within your availability zone, that case the entire cost is free. But for the out of availability zone, that means I am passing my availability zone, means my server is being introduced or established in USA, and sorry, I am making the request from India. That case the cost will be different, and also the resource request. So these are the few generic components which are common for any type of services, whether it is an infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service or a software as a service. Now, in case of why these HTTP and SOAP requests are significant in case of metering, monitoring, as well as in the billing process. Earlier, we also have told that these are a part of your service-oriented architecture. Why the service-oriented architecture? Suppose through the HTTP and SOAP request, we are making one transaction request. So transaction means financial transaction, means this is the user making a request to its e-commerce site for any purchase. The e-commerce site will pass this request to the third-party payment gateway to complete the procurement process. Now this third-party payment gateway, suppose it may be Google Pay or PayPal or whatever it may be, Google Pay. Then from Google Pay it will go to the banking website, suppose SBI. Now in multiple numbers of gateway we are passing through. So and all are through all the gateways I am passing my sensitive informations like my login ID, password, credit card, debit card details, OTP, etc., which should not be revealed in any one of the gateways, right? Only the SBI database will check this one. So in between this, so that it should not be revealed, so what they do that they only passes this message, they never decipher this message during its transaction. and whenever the transaction happens, immediately all the messages are destroyed. Only thing they keep in within their messages, that is the consumer ID and transaction ID. Why we have to keep it within our transaction? Because in case the transaction gets failed, that case to track in a backtracking procedure that which user has made this transaction, so that the failed based on this failed transaction, the debit and credit procedure should be revert back to the particular user. So we need to consider that consumer ID and transaction ID. Not only that, this if this Google Pay server and the SBI server is also make in some cloud database, making in some cloud database, that case also they have to keep track of how many number of SOAP and REST messages are passed. Based on this, their billing will be done. But as we have already told that whatever be the SOAP or REST messages are passed, we have to immediately destroy it. So what is the procedure to keep track of all those messages, because these are required for their billing? So instead of this number of SOAP and REST messages, what they do that they keep the consumer ID and the transaction ID only. So based on that consumer ID and transaction ID, this cloud modules passes this consumer ID and transaction ID to their metering and billing procedure, and they complete the metering and billing process. So that is why we need to keep the number of SOAP and messages, REST messages. And another thing is that whatever be the maximum number of, there is no maximum limit of number of SOAP and REST messages. You can send infinite number of messages, but your cloud services should be capable enough to tackle all those messages. That is why they have to immediately scale up or scale down their infrastructure so as to handle this number of SOAP and REST messages, and accordingly your billing will also get increased. Now, as we have already told that this number of messages are these are the generic parameters based on which your billing will be done. Apart from this, infrastructure as a service has some billing and for the billing and metering services. A few of the parameters that are involved, like the servers per hour serving on-demand model. That means if you take an infrastructure service in an on-demand basis, that means for per hour basis billing will be done. Though you will get the bill monthly basis, but per hour the billing and metering module will check that how much resources are being utilized. Some cases, so suppose for the compute time consideration, they consider the compute time in per minute basis. It means that in 1 minute how many computations have been done, though you will get the billing and metering invoices in a monthly basis. But this is not applicable. The infrastructure in case of IaaS services, this one is not applicable if you go for the reserved instances. That means if you are paying upfront cost, if you take the entire reserve for 1 year or 2 year, that case a particular fixed amount will be charged to you. Though this amount is much more less than the on-demand model, but still in that case this will not be applicable. Another thing is the volume-based metering on number of instances consumed. That means if you take the volume number of instances or more, that case your metering and billing procedure will be different. Or the repeat or reserve infrastructure resources that I have already discussed, and for the cluster server resources. For the cluster server resources, again the infrastructure cost is much more less. So this is all about the IaaS billing and metering parameters. Now for the PaaS services, so what are the significant parameters that we need to consider at the time of calculating your billing and metering procedure? So as we already know that a PaaS service is basically serverless computing services, or will create a platform for the user, where the user will create the entire apps. So for creating that apps, what are the what are the required platforms are required? Those platforms will provide. It may include your that IDE in integrated development environment, or the required API or version control platform services. So all those services it will provide. So in that case, if multiple numbers of APIs or IDEs are involved to create your ideal platform, so that case we need to take care of the incoming and the outgoing network bandwidth. So this network bandwidth also you need to take care of. Another is the CPU usage per hour. Though billing will be done monthly basis, but the how much CPU computation power is being consumed. Sometimes it is per minute also it is being calculated. And then the stored data. So how much stored data is being stored, and the high availability. So if you choose your preferred availability zone, that case also your cost will vary, and the service charge will always be monthly one. Now the next one is the SaaS services. Now for the SaaS service, billing and metering services, these are the required parameters. Basically three types of SaaS services are there. One is the monthly and fixed cost basis, like if we consider the software subscription basis services like Office 365 or Adobe Creative Cloud, where how much you are using that one, that is insignificant. Only thing that you have to pay the subscription fee monthly wise or annual fees. And some of the services are there, they don't charge monthly or annual basis, they charge user, how many number of users are using this one, and that is also monthly or per month or per annual fee. Suppose the TCS Ion ERP systems, that is either customized ERP systems, which can be sometimes termed as BPaaS, Business Process as a Service. So these types of BPaaS services, they charge it per user basis, per user license. And some of the SaaS services are there, they charge it based on the amount of jobs executed. It is not monthly or annually. And suppose the plagiarism software like Authenticate is one popular plagiarism software, another is Urkund. So they will bill you based on how many words are there in your document that are being checked for plagiarism in the net. So based on this, their charging and billing will be done. So this is about the brief idea about how your metering and billing services and it is being calculated. And but there are some other lots of parameters are there. So basically, this is a entire complex procedure, and it is also transparent. We'll show you one example, one tool through which you can keep track of your billing and metering entire procedures. So apart from these three basic services, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, there are billing and metering modules are also there. Customized billing and metering modules are also there for one service that is called DaaS, another is called MaaS. DaaS is basically database as a service, means basically in case of infrastructure as a service we can take the database, right? But if we take the database